Welcome to our channel Hashmi Clinics.
Welcome! Today, we're jumping right into a remedy that is as powerful as it is peculiar, anthracomia. Now, this is definitely not your everyday polycrest, and by the end of our time together, you'll have a really clear picture of when you should be thinking about this remedy for some of your absolute toughest cases. Let's kick things off with Constantine Herring's own words. He called it a very absurd combination. And, that phrase just perfectly sums up its strange origin and its incredibly powerful, deep-acting nature. When Herring himself calls something absurd, it's a pretty good hint that we're in for something out of the ordinary.
So what exactly is this absurd combination? Well, it's a mineral remedy, basically a compound of carbon and potassium. Now, I want you to think for a second. Imagine taking the deep-acting, often slow, methodical nature of the carbons, and then fusing that with the destructive, ulcerative tendency of caustic potash. This sort of chemical marriage creates a uniquely formidable sphere of action, and that's exactly what we're here to unpack.
So here's a quick look at our roadmap. We're going to start with the very core essence of the remedy, and then we'll build from there. We'll cover the mental picture, the complete physical symptomatology, the key modalities, and then we'll wrap it all up with its clinical application. By the end, you're going to be able to spot this remedy with a lot of confidence. All right, let's dive in. At its very heart, Anthraco-kali is a remedy for deep-seated decay. And I mean deep. This isn't for superficial problems. We are talking about chronic pathologies that are really rooted in the scrofulous and psychotic miasms, where the vital force is just fundamentally struggling against a constitutional breakdown. The whole picture is one of ulceration and a total failure to heal properly. So the bottom line is this. Anthraco-kali is for those chronic conditions that just will not resolve. The ones that show a relentless tendency towards ulceration, induration, and these persistent, just tormenting eruptions. From caries of the bone to chronic herpetic outbreaks, this theme of decay is the red thread that weaves through its entire pathogenesis. While the physical symptoms of Anthraco-kali are often what scream out to us, it's the mental state that really provides that crucial confirmation. So, let's take a look at the guiding mental picture. The mental symptoms are pretty simple, but they are crystal clear. This isn't the restless, fidgety anxiety of arsenicum or the bubbly, open nature of phosphorus. No. This is a withdrawn, sullen discontent. A morose, sulky state that's like this quiet but persistent backdrop to all the significant physical pathology. They're just not happy, and they really don't want to talk about it. Okay, now let's build the full physical portrait. And honestly, this is where this remedy truly shines. It's in its characteristic and often very peculiar symptoms. This is where we find our unmistakable keynotes.
So these generals really set the constitutional stage. That intense, insatiable thirst is a huge keynote, and it becomes even more important when we pair it with the urinary symptoms we'll see in a moment. And you have to note the specific fever sequence. A chill, which is often accompanied by sadness, then heat, and then a gentle sweat, which brings relief. And get this, right before that sweat, look for a significant sense of oppression in the chest and even violent palpitations. That is a vital clinical clue.
Now, if you remember just one thing about Anthrakokali from our talk today, let it be this. Its profound and specific action on the skin. It is an absolute champion for those chronic, obstinate eruptions that have failed to respond to pretty much everything else you've thrown at them. And this slide just brilliantly illustrates the remedy's specificity. The papular eruption on the scrotum, that's a true grade A keynote. If you see that in your clinic, Anthrakokali should be at the absolute top of your list. And then there's this bizarre modality. The itching and the pimples appear at night, only to vanish by daytime. It's such a clear, guiding symptom that you just can't afford to miss.
That theme of decay and dark discharges continues here with force. There is a profound disturbance in the digestive tract, all the way from vomiting black mucus to passing blackish, pop-like stools. And the abdomen is often just hugely distended with gas, so tight it feels like a drum.
Okay, this is another absolutely critical area. Remember that intense thirst? Well, you combine that with this profound diuresis. We're talking an abundant flow of pale urine, and that combination should immediately have you thinking about conditions like diabetes mellitus. Also, make a note of the frequent, sometimes even painful erections, a state of priapism that points to some really significant irritation going on in the male sphere. And now for the modalities. As we all know, this is often what makes or breaks a prescription, right? These are the details that individualize the case and confirm our remedy choice, taking it from just a possibility to a certainty. So the nightly aggravation of the skin stuff is pretty standard. But what's really fascinating here is this rare and peculiar modality. The skin symptoms get better with the full of the moon. I mean, how weird is that? This is a highly characteristic, almost bizarre symptom that, if you find it in your case, confirms the remedy beyond any doubt. It's one of those golden keynotes that we live for. So how do we pull all of this together and actually apply this knowledge in the clinic? And critically, how do we differentiate it from other common remedies that might look kind of similar at first glance? While its greatest strength is definitely in these deep, chronic, scrofulous, and psychotic states, you've got to remember that it can also be invaluable in certain acute presentations. Think of a sudden bilious attack with that characteristic black vomit, or an explosive case of hives with that classic nightly aggravation. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It can be confused with several of our major polycrests, especially the ones with strong skin or rheumatic symptoms. So getting a clear differentiation is absolutely essential. This table here really clarifies those key differentiators. So you might think of rust tox since they both cover rheumatism and skin, but rust tox has its hallmark restlessness and that classic aggravation from cold, damp weather. Carbo-veg shares the GI bloating, but it presents with that icy coldness and a desperate air hunger. And while Ant-crude shares the ill humor, its calling card is that thick, milky white tongue. But that specific eruption on the scrotum and the weird moon modality, those belong uniquely to Anthraco-kali. So, to bring it all together, here's a simple 5-step framework for prescribing Anthrakokali. 1. Think skin. Start with a chronic, itching eruption. 2. Confirm the location. Is the scrotum, hands, or feet involved? 3. Check the generals. Is that intense thirst and marked diuresis there? 4. Hunt for the peculiars. Look for the nightly aggravation, or that crazy better with the full moon. And finally, 5. Compare and contrast. Rule out rust tox, the carbons, and Ant-crude. If you follow these steps, you'll have the confidence to prescribe this remedy effectively. The most crucial thing to remember is to keep this remedy in mind for those stubborn, chronic cases of decay and eruption that just refuse to resolve. It's for conditions that go deep into the constitution, where the vital force is really failing. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. Consider your own past cases, those tough ones with chronic herpes or prurigo or even diabetes. Where might Anthrakokali have been the similimum that you were looking for?
Professor Dr. Rafat Hashmi is a distinguished homeopathic physician, educator, and researcher with over 4 decades of clinical and teaching experience. He is widely respected for his deep command of materia medica, repertory, and constitutional prescribing, combined with a practical, patient-centered approach. Dr. Hashmi has dedicated his career to training generations of homeopathic doctors, blending classical principles with modern clinical insight. He is also known for his innovative work in digital homeopathy, developing educational content, clinical tools, and AI-assisted systems to enhance remedy selection and case analysis. With a strong commitment to ethical practice and lifelong learning, Professor Dr. Rafat Hashmi continues to guide, inspire, and elevate the standards of homeopathic education and patient care.